How much is Poilievre paying for staying in his government-funded
Minister,
house
I have great news for you. You're going to have lots of time to ask us questions when you're on the opposition side of the House. But today, you're supposed to be a minister that's responsible for your department, and you're demonstrating a failure in that.
With everything else that's collapsing around Trudeau, it's easy to forget the other ongoing scandals that he has gnawing at the government carcass that's slowly decaying into oblivion. And we're back to the mighty Ogo Committee today to watch Melanie Joly sit in front of the Conservative firing squad as they probe deeper into the $9 million condo corruption scandal.
Been waiting for this one. Let's take a look.
We'll start with Mr. Barrett for 6 minutes, please.
New documents reported in Politico today reveal that Tom Clark lied during his appearance before this committee. We know that he personally complained that his taxpayer-funded residence wasn't up to his standards because it didn't have a luxury kitchen or the perfect floor plan. And after Tom Clark complained, Justin Trudeau rewarded his friend and media pal with a new luxury condo at 4 times the cost to taxpayers. So to Canadians who are watching, Justin Trudeau and Tom Clark fleeced the taxpayers, and they tried to cover it up. So, Minister, do you think it's appropriate for Justin Trudeau to have awarded his media pal, Tom Clark, with such a flagrant waste of tax dollars, especially during this cost of living crisis that we're facing?
Good question.
Okay, so that's the first question.
And it was a good one, because that's what we're all sitting here thinking. There's an affordability crisis in this country. Many Canadians are going hungry and homeless. And Justin Trudeau sees no problem with buying his buddy a $9 million condo on the taxpayer's dime.
Well, and the interesting thing is usually you see some sort of lead up, some sort of, framing of how the Conservative questioning is going to go. But this time, I think all the framing has been done by the previous committee. As well as the committee on Tom Clark, which, sadly we haven't gotten to cover just because everything else is falling apart in this government. But, he essentially made it out to seem that, oh, I'm so surprised. I don't even know why I'm here. I didn't know anything was going on. A new condo fell into my lap and, I was just appreciative of it. That's basically how he made it sound. So this is really interesting. And when Mr. Barrett says, oh, we know that he lied, there's a reason for that. So I guess, when some papers are, flashed around New York that say something like His Majesty the King, King Charles III, is looking to purchase a new condo, people kind of take notice of that in the New York real estate market.
One would think.
So they started reporting on it and saying, oh, King Charles is buying a condo. And then, as they spoke to the people that are actually orchestrating this, no, it's actually not King Charles. It's a formality. He's not actually buying this. This is just the Canadian government that's buying this. And then they said, oh, so who's actually buying it? Oh, well, it's for Tom Clark because he asked for a new one. Oops.
So, before you interrupt me, because I know, Michael, that's a strategy you use, I really think that there are 3 things. First, I think that, Canadians are getting good value for money because there will be $7 million in Canadian taxpayers' savings. Second, the process was respected at all times. And thirdly, I profoundly believe that more than ever, as the American people are going through an important election today, we need to invest in our presence in the U.S. So I really hope, Michael, that you agree with me, because I know your riding is next to the U.S. and you have 2 bridges that permit fantastic workers going through it, truck drivers, exporting and importing millions of dollars
sufficient
every
time
day
for you to not answer the
between
question,
Canada
Minister.
and U.S. So I've answered your question.
Is it common for your department to spend nearly $10 million on luxury condos without you personally approving?
I love the shade. Yeah, that was sufficient time for you to not answer the question, Minister. But excellent follow-up. Is this normal for Global Affairs to buy $10 million worth of real estate without you having to sign on it?
Well, as we recall, they raised the purchase limit. So it was $4 million previously, and then they raised it to $10 million just before Tom Clark got this condo.
And I believe it was 8 to 10 years between the last time that they raised this and now. And the catch is if you go over that amount, then you need to actually have this vetted by Treasury boards. So all of a sudden they decided, you know what? Yeah, we need a much higher limit now because we don't want to be going through that extra bureaucratic process, extra oversight, so that we can actually be held to account for our big purchases.
Right. One would think that because it's taxpayer money that they should be going through that extra oversight. But for whatever reason, they decided, no, we don't need to. And this limit is reviewed every 4 years. But if memory serves, it wasn't raised for, I think it was 8 prior.
Yeah, it was a while. They went through 2, maybe even 3 evaluations before they all of a sudden decided, oh, well, we need it now and we need it caught all the way back up. So that's the interesting part to this. And again, you would think that this should have been reviewed considering the political climate that we're in that so many Canadians are living in cars, in tents, can't afford rent, having to live with their parents.
Having to live with their children.
Right. So, yeah, reasonable question.
So first and foremost, to answer your question, this was not a political decision because it was an operational decision. And you had numerous people, officials of mine, that came to see you and said that. So these are the facts, and I really
When
hope
did
that
you
you can...
approve the $9 million
Speaker, this is again
luxury
the
condo
strategy that
for
Michael uses, which
Consul
is to
General
interrupt
Tom
me.
Clark?
Michael, can you just stop? I'll just finish.
So,
I promise it won't be long. I just want to finish my
Point
sentence.
of order, Chair.
Yep. Mr. Barrett?
Okay, so in spite of the minister's hostile response to my first question, she was afforded equal time to the amount of time that I posed the question, even though she didn't answer it. I asked a second question, and she was afforded equal amount of time to the length of the question, and she was able to do with that what she wished. Now, if the minister wants to interrupt me, that of course is not in order at this committee. So, Chair, could you please provide clarification to the minister that she will be afforded the same amount of time to respond as the amount of time that I pose the question?
Actually, it has been the practice of this committee that it is the member's time. So if you wish to take 5 minutes for a question and provide 30 seconds for a response, that is your decision, Mr. Barrett, but it is the committee member's time. Go ahead, sir.
Boom. Michael Barrett knows his procedure.
You know, I was waiting for Joly to accuse Mr. Barrett of being a misogynist or something like that. Like, I was just waiting for it.
It wouldn't surprise me if she tried.
Yeah. But this is the thing. You come to committee and you're there to answer questions. You don't like, and if the member wants to interrupt you, then they can. And it doesn't matter if it's a liberal interrupting or conservative interrupting. That's the rules of the mighty Ogo. And it is what it is.
Right. It's the member's time, as Mr. Macaulay said. If the member wants to take a minute to ask you a question, you've got a minute to answer. If they ask you a very quick question that takes 15 seconds, well, guess what? You've got 15 seconds to answer. If they want to let you go on, then they will. But if they don't, because you're filibustering, they're going to cut you off.
Now, there is some latitude that the witness must have, because if you start to answer and then you're immediately interrupted, well, then that's not really playing fair, and you need to be able to allow the witness to answer to some degree.
Right.
But if you give them a good fair amount of time to start to answer, but either A, they're not answering the question, or B, they are going off in a completely different direction than you intend them, to Tanya's point, to filibuster, then yeah, absolutely. Member can butt in and say, no, sorry, you're not doing that. Because when it comes to especially these types of committee meetings, This isn't a normal one, right? This is where a minister shows up. And the minister didn't have to show up, right? She's not compelled to show up. So she did show up. Now the minister is going to be trying to waste as much time as possible of all of the Conservatives. Like, that's where you're going to get into these long answers. Oh, let me answer this 3 ways, 6 ways, 7 ways. Trying to just take up as much time as possible so they get the fewest amount of questions in as possible.
And she's probably going to be filibustering for the Bloc and probably the NDP too.
Yeah, because all 3 of them aren't too happy about this. So very, very interesting opening salvos. And we're not even a few minutes in.
First learn about the $9 million New York City condo on Billionaires Row for Justin Trudeau's media buddy, Tom Clark? What was the date?
So first and foremost, I must say that this was not a political decision, so I learned it through the media. And at the same time, I made sure that all rules was respected, and that's the case in this case.
We didn't get a date from the minister. The story broke on July the 12th, and I have an email from your former chief of staff dated on June 17th that says, thanks for the briefing note of the issue. The decision to sell and purchase a new residence seems like the logical step to take in this instance. Did you meet with your chief of staff between June 17th and July 12th?
So I must say that, of course, the department informed my chief of staff once the decision was taken because, of course, it was not a political decision.
Chief.
So many times per day, Michael. And you know what?
So
it's good news because there's so many things happening.
This is flagrant malpractice.
I'm sorry, speaking.
Yeah, and your time is up.
I'm speaking.
Flagrant malpractice for you as a minister to just completely ignore.
Kelly, I'm sorry.
I'm going to interrupt.
I understand you're in the same party, both. But at the same time,
I'm going to interrupt everyone here. I have the floor. A couple things. It is the tradition in this committee. We use our last names out of kind of a sign of respect, but it is the members' time. I would ask, you'll have, I'm sure, an opportunity to perhaps get some of your points across to other questions, but it is the members' time. We ask that you allow Mr. Barrett to speak and provide answers. How much time do you have? We're at 3:44, so you have 2 minutes and 15 seconds, Mr. Barrett.
So you can tell that Minister Joly is used to getting what she wants.
Seems like it.
And I was actually a little taken aback when she was calling Barrett Michael and then turned to Kelly McCauley and was like, Kelly.
Well, especially because he's the chair. It should be chair.
Right.
Right? I mean, at worst, it should be Mr. McCauley, but in this situation, it's Mr. Chair or Chair.
Yeah, and it shows a complete lack of respect coming into committee, especially as a minister, and not addressing people by, their proper address.
Well, it seems like she thinks she's better than they are.
Well, that's part of the...
But because that's how you talk to children, right? We don't call our kid, Mr. Northern Perspective. It's his first name.
Right. But, this is par for the course for this Trudeau government.
Minister, in the June 17th memo to your chief of staff, it says Tom Clark approved the $9 million condo and it was instrumental in the purchase. With hindsight, do you wish that your chief of staff had got your personal sign off on this if you claim that you did not, in fact, know about it?
So, Michael, no. Why? Because you've already answered. You have already asked me the question, and I've already answered. So this was a decision that, according to Treasury Board rules, had to go through the department, and therefore no
These are
political
Treasury Board
involvement.
rules that your government changed. Of course, you raised the limit just in time to, of course, buy this luxury condo for Justin Trudeau's buddy Tom
I'm sorry,
Clark.
but that's false.
Now,
that was done in 2019.
Now, right. Your cabinet made the change, Minister. So you're the one who made the change just in time to be able to make this purchase so that you could say you didn't hear anything and you didn't say anything.
That's
How
false
many
also.
heads of mission have been, quote, instrumental in purchasing luxury condos?
So this is a decision that is always taken by the department. And so I know that you've been doing character assassination against Tom Clark, and that's really sad because when you don't have your facts straight, usually what you do, you resort to personal attacks.
What's really sad, Minister, is that Canadians are struggling just to get by, lined up at food banks in record numbers, and you seem to have checked out on any accountability that you should be exercising in your role as minister. And we see that instead of helping Canadians, you're helping well-connected liberal insiders. So I think I have just about a minute left.
So this is how this government seems to operate. And I'm starting to wonder if there was a second reason why this limit was actually raised. One, so they can get this condo. But two, so the minister doesn't have to be bothered.
Oh, so she can like wash her hands of it. Well, it wasn't me.
So there's nothing for them to do.
Right.
Right?
So they can't be implicated. Oh, well, you approved this $9 million condo. Well, I didn't have to approve anything because the limit was raised.
Well, I think it's that, but I think it's also even more cynical than that, in that, remember what we've seen, all of these liberal ministers, they seem like all they do all day is just put their feet up on the desk. They have no idea what's going on. They don't even read their emails. And they have no accountability whatsoever over their actual departments. They're always like, oh, well, you know, that's the departments, that's this, that's that. And it's like, okay, so what do you do? Like, to Garnet Genesis' point, what would you say you do here? So I think this is also just a way so that Melanie Joly can collect a $300,000 a year paycheck for doing absolutely nothing. All she gets to do is travel around the world on jets, burning the planet, you know, sitting in a plane for 10 hours. Can't go to the bathroom, right, Mark Holland?
No. That's road trips. That's road trips. You know, the rest of us that are burning the planet.
Right,
But these politicians can jet anywhere they want, anytime they want, and everything's fine.
Right. So I think that's honestly probably part of this. It was a change to alleviate any actual work that comes across Joly's desk. So, yeah, this is unreal. And the fact that she's trying to say, oh, well, come on, it's like a $9 million condo. I'm sorry. Like, you are just completely out of touch. And this is the impression that 40% of Canadians have of you right now. And that's why we won an election.
And I have to know, because the claim from your officials was that this was going to be a great deal. Canadians were going to save all kinds of money, and that they had sold the previous condo. We heard that this was the case. So if you could tell Canadians now, how much was the check that the Receiver General received for the sale of the former residence that justified the purchase of this $9 million condo? How much did you sell the previous residence for?
So we are convinced that we'll make sure that we have $7 million back for Canadian taxpayers, because I think it is a good value for money transaction. It is a transaction that is actually
Minister,
well supported.
Is that the check
and
has,
I'm sorry,
you haven't
I'm
received,
still speaking.
you haven't received a check.
So, and you've
I'm
spoken
afraid-
for a long time. It's not a question,
you haven't
it's
received
actually
a
a
check.
rant.
I'm
You haven't
afraid we
received
are
a
out of
check.
time. Both
Canadians are out of
Sorry.
pocket millions.
Wow. So, Mr. Barrett, I have the answer, sir. The answer is they haven't received a check yet. That's the answer. And that's the problem, because they say, this is good value for money, and we're confident we're going to have 7 months. You cannot say that with any certainty whatsoever, because you have not sold the first one.
Well, and I love it when they had to bring in the realtor for both condos. I think he did the deal for both condos,
Yes.
didn't he? And he's trying to say that the old condo was so bad that Tom Clark needed a new one, but it's so great it's worth $13 million.
Right? It's a $13 million dump. Like, he was probably dreading that, because any potential buyers that are looking at that community are like, why would I want to buy this then? If this is such a dump. And this is where it was beautiful having the Conservatives catch him on this fence that he's sitting on, like, because for his client he has to say it's a dump to justify the reason to buy the new one,
yeah.
and he has to say it's a palace to try
To sell the old one.
which means that it doesn't justify buying the new one. It was unreal, folks.
And like, we're laughing because it's just so ridiculous. Like, it's infuriating on the one hand because this is our tax dollars, but it's just unbelievable to watch the mental gymnastics that these guys go through to try to justify the purchase of this condo.
Like, go check our playlist on it, and because we show you pictures of both of them.
And they're really nice.
Really, really nice. Like the wood floor.
It was walnut.
Yeah, and the old one. Like, it looks
That's a nice wood.
Like I'm preparing myself to look at a shack, like something that's condemned, and it's like, what the heck is this?
Go to Mr. Brock, please, for 5.
Minister, notwithstanding your opening comments about the importance of Canada's relationship to the United States, your appearance today is exclusively about the egregious abuse of taxpayer money. Emily Richardson, the Chief of Staff of your Associate Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, the author of the infamous memo, was given information that Tom Clark was instrumental throughout the process and gave the green light for the purchase of the Billionaires Row condo. She testified that she simply inserts information as provided to her. Minister, you acknowledge that she wrote the original memo circulated on June 17th to your former chief that states Clark was instrumental, correct?
Donc, je vais juste répondre à votre question, Larry.
Just to answer your question, Larry. My chief of staff was informed once his decision was made, and that's what was stated here. That's the information I have. These are the facts.
Day after this committee passed a motion ordering all documents from your department related to the purchase of the condo, the same Emily Richardson, who said she simply inputs information provided to her, all of a sudden issued a major correction saying it was a mistake that Clark was instrumental and gave the green light. Minister, do you find that suspicious in any way?
Non, absolument pas. Parce que, bien entendu,
No, absolutely not. Because as I answered our colleague Rachel Blaney earlier.
Okay, this translator is freaking terrible.
Yeah, and I guess I just want to go over quickly the etiquette, if you will, for translation and speaking the different languages in Parliament and committee in the House, etc., as I understand them. Anyways, number 1 is you are permitted to speak in whichever official language you prefer, whether that's English or French, but it's to my understanding that it's more polite for you to respond, if you're bilingual, for you to respond in the language that the person is asking you the question. So by Melanie Joly, who's speaking to Michael Barrett in English, and now is speaking to Larry Brock in French, and now through a translator, it seems like she's trying to avoid not answering the question, but for the Anglo population of Canada to really understand what she's saying very well. So it seems to me like maybe she's trying to hide something.
Well, the other thing is she knows how active Brock's social media is, and she knows that Brock sometimes tweets out things in the middle of committee, which is his right to do so. So the other thing that she's probably, trying to be wary of is getting clipped and being posted on social media. So that's
right. Yeah, because 76% I think of Canada's population speaks English. So the fact that she's answering an English question in French when she was previously conversing with Michael Barrett in English, it seems like she's either trying to hide something or, like Ryan said, maybe trying to avoid getting clipped for social media.
Now, again, it's her right to answer back in French, but It's not considered, I would say, cordial to do so.
Correct.
There's always some information provided to different ambassadors and consuls, but they don't have any decision-making power.
Suspicious, as do the millions of Canadians who are watching this on a live feed. And now it's been confirmed that your staff, the ministry officials who've appeared here, and even Tom Clark himself, the buddy, the good friend of Justin Trudeau himself, was instrumental in starting the process of relocating Tom Clark to Billionaires Row condominium in Manhattan. It was simply unsuitable for him. It was important for him to have the full suite of Gaggenau appliances. It was important for him to have the $5,000 coffee machine. It was important for him to have the golf simulator, and your office provided that to him. Isn't that correct?
non, c'est faux, Larry.
No, that's not true, Larry. You know what Canadians are looking at today? There are millions of people looking at us. I think that's somewhat exaggerated. I think there are millions of Canadians that have their eyes focused on what's happening in the U.S., the results of today's elections, and what Canadians expect is that we should be well represented, that we invest in our relationship with the United States.
Memo created by Emily Richardson was sent to your office, to your chief of staff. Your office gets involved, and the story around Tom Clark mysteriously and suddenly changes. Did you personally, Minister, become involved in the process to cover up for Justin Trudeau's close friend, Tom Clark? Yes or no?
The first thing. That's my guess. But you know, this is interesting, and it's pretty pathetic, actually. So I think I've changed my mind. I think she is just trying to be disrespectful at this point, because again, she has been told by Kelly McCauley that we use people's last names here or their official position out of respect. And she's said, you know, oh, well, you know, not at all, Larry. It's like, no, you don't do that.
Actually, in the House especially, you do not refer to members by name unless they're being named and kicked out of the House. The purpose of that is to remove the personalization from it, because everybody has a job to do, and a lot of those jobs are opposing the other people trying to do those jobs. So, you know, it's not Larry Brock asking these questions in committee. It's the member for Brantford Brant, because that's the member's job, is to ask these questions. It's so that you don't take it personally. But Melanie Joly is going out of her way to make it personal, and very inappropriately, if you ask me. Again, if she's going to be using names, she should be using last names. Mr. Brock, Mr. Barrett.
Let me put this in some context for you, everybody. And you're going to cringe. So just be prepared. Even Ikra Khalid uses their last name.
Absolument pas. Puis je mets...
Absolutely not. I would like to know, every time you mention Mr. Trudeau, do you have...
Trudeau, did your chief of staff assist Justin Trudeau in covering up for Tom Clark? Yes or no?
J'ai déjà répondu.
I think I've already answered that question. Every time you mention Justin Trudeau, I will also mention Pierre Poilievre, because one thing is for sure.
Again, were you ever briefed on the condo purchase from June 17th when your top official, your chief of staff, became aware a government document identified Clark as being instrumental and gave the green light?
Est-ce que Pierre Poilievre vous a demandé?
What Pierre Poilievre, he asked us the same question 3 times. Maybe I'll give 3 different answers.
What else is your chief of staff keeping from you, and by extension, you, Minister, keeping from Canadians?
Je pense que les Canadiens...
I think Canadians expect us to invest in the relationship, that we have value for our money, and that all the processes are followed.
en accord avec cette approche.
So we agree with that.
Clark is paying $1,800 per month in rent. That's less than the national average for Canadians. Do you think that's fair, that that's what he has to pay in rent for a $9 million luxury condo, when your government is responsible for doubling rent, doubling mortgage costs, requiring Canadians to have to save 25 years just for a down payment? That's your government's legacy, and you're giving this guy a $9 million condo for $1,800 a month. Do you think it's fair, yes or no?
How much is Pierre Poilievre paying for staying in his government-funded
Minister,
house
I have great
right
news
now?
for you. You're going to have lots of time to ask us questions when you're on the opposition side of the House. But today, you're supposed to be a minister that's responsible for your department, and you're demonstrating a failure in that.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Tom Clark was paying rent, number one, but B, that it was so low.
$1,800 a month, folks. $1,800.
So who's carrying that $9 million mortgage? And I mean, I know the answer. It's us taxpayers.
It's the taxpayers, right?
Like, that's disgusting. This guy is living in luxury for $1,800 a month, and Canadians are living in cars, in tents, with their parents, with their children.
But the best part, folks, is he gets to write it off as a tax deduction too. because he's paying it for work.
This isn't right.
And notice how Melanie Joly switched back to English when, Mr. Barrett started asking her questions.
I have a theory, and I don't know for sure. This is just a theory, but I get a lot of tension. Like I sense a lot of tension between Barrett and Joly, and I think she's doing it in English so that she can try to demean him in his own language.
Oh, could be, but the deplorable behavior.
Yeah, it's very unbecoming of a minister.
Like
it's shameful. It's absolutely shameful. But I mean, how do you defend something like this? You can't. So I guess this is the behavior that you demonstrate to Canadians.
Well, and that's the thing. When you retreat into absurdity, you end up looking absurd.
Yeah, that is our time. We will go to Miss Atwin, and perhaps she can continue the line of questioning. Go ahead, Miss Atwin, please, for 5.
Okay, we're not going to show you Jenica Atwin, but that was amazing.
Mr. Kelly knows something's going on.
Kelly's just like, oh my goodness, it's going to be one of these.
Yeah. I really feel for these conservative chairs, like just the garbage that they have to put up with. And they all handle it so professionally, like Kelly McCauley, John Williamson, and John, what was the other John?
Oh, Brassard.
Brassard, thank you. I knew it was a B. Yeah, like these guys, they have the patience of saints, I swear.
But they all have that face, especially Williamson and Brassard. You can just tell when they've had enough. Like, they're just like, I'm done. I'm done. And how could you not be?
Go to Mrs. Kusi and then Mr. Souza to finish off.
Bonjour, Madame Ministre Melanie. You said in your opening statement today that it was in the media that you learned about the $9 million condo purchase. How is it that you didn't know about this purchase before you yourself admitting to just learning about it from the media?
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm happy to see you. I know that you come from the Diplomatic Network of Canada, being the former consul in Dallas, and I know you trust foreign affairs to deal with important assets in which you had the chance to work in Argentina, in Dallas. And you know that the rules are always, under my watch at least, respected, and that was the case. And so we followed Treasury Board rules as you did as when you were former consul in Dallas.
The question wasn't whether you followed the rules. The question was, how is it possible that you didn't know? A $10 million purchase was being made for one of Justin Trudeau's buddies, and for what all of you keep saying is one of the most important consulate general offices in the world for Canada. And if your chief of staff knew, how is it possible that you didn't know? And I think we all know the answer to that.
That the ministers in Trudeau's government do zero actual work and have no idea what's going on in their portfolios.
Or she absolutely did know and did actually participate in this.
Thank you for that response, Minister, but I still find it very shocking, as I think Canadians do, that you were made aware of this purchase through the media. Minister, how did you not know that the Deputy Chief of Protocol in Global Affairs attended a Russian embassy party? How did you not know that?
So that's a fair point, and I was not happy about my team not informing me, and I think I've said what I needed to say about that. Since then, my question to you is, why would the Conservative not support Ukraine in this decisive moment in the world while Ukrainians are fighting for their freedom, but also ours? And I know as a diplomat, you would know what that means.
Nice try, Joly. You don't get to ask questions.
No, you're here to answer questions, so maybe you should start.
Right? Like, oh, well, that's a fair point. I wasn't happy about that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up Ukraine, because my next question to you, Melanie, was how did you not know that Canada accepted an invitation to send a patrol ship to Cuba while the Russian Navy was present. So I think your point about Ukraine is a very good lead-in to this question. How did you not know that?
So this is a question you should ask to the Defense Department and my dear colleague who's doing a great job, Bill Blair. And he's the minister that will see the doubling and nearly tripling of the defense budget under his watch and under our watch as government, which the Conservative cut the Defense Department's budget 5 years in a row, and that's unfortunate.
My point, Madam Minister Melanie, is that you have just indicated now 3 things that you did not know. You did not know that we had purchased a $9 million condo at a time when Canadians are suffering as a result of your government. You did not know that the Deputy Chief of Protocol for Global Affairs Canada attended a Russian embassy party. And you did not know that Canada accepted an invitation to send a patrol ship to Cuba while the Russian Navy was present, despite your comments about Ukraine. I'm very concerned about you, Minister Melanie, not knowing what is going on. And why are you so uninformed as to what goes on in your own department? Why do you not know?
Great question.
And the answer is the same as every other minister that is in this Trudeau government. It's a big frat party. Nobody has any idea what they're doing because nobody's even qualified to actually do the job that they're in. And they're not held accountable. And why are they not held accountable? Because accountability starts from the top all the way down. And if Trudeau spends his days wasting taxpayer money, feeling like a celebrity going all over the world, well, what do you think his ministers are going to do? They're going to shirk off as much responsibility as possible and say, oh, not my problem. The departments will handle it. That's what they get paid to do. And my job is just to hold a title. Well, that's a pretty poor excuse for a government, and no wonder we're in the state that we're in.
So these were not the answers I gave you. So of course, Stephanie, you can't, say and use the pre-written questions you had.
Minister
But
said that you do not
basically,
know.
What I can tell you, what I know, is the investments in the U.S. is fundamental, which you would agree because you used to work as a diplomat in the U.S. as a trade commissioner, which I really thank you for your service to the country because I
Thank
think
you,
it was
Minister.
important.
But I maintain the position that you did not know those 3 things. How did you find out about the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Did you know that?
I think that not only did
How did
I
you
know
find
that,
out
we were
about
ready.
October 7th? How were you made aware of that? Did you know that? Fortunately, it is apparent that you do know there is an election in the United States today, as you indicated that in your opening statement. But you spoke in your opening statement about how security is at a pivotal moment in the history of Canada, in the history of the world. And yet there is so much that you don't know. I'm here to tell you today, Canadians expect you to know. And if you hope to one day be the leader of the official opposition, Canadians will expect you to know. Madam Minister Melanie.
A point of order.
Mr. Chair,
Point
with
of
my
order.
remaining
I would
time,
like to answer
I'd
Order,
like to...
okay.
Wow, awesome. That was good.
Good going, Stephanie.
Well, because Joly thinks that she's in the running, or there's rumors that she's in the running to be leader once Trudeau is
Gone.
disposed of.
Yeah, like the rotten piece of meat that he is. Yeah. I think she does think that she is because she's a woman. She's from Quebec. She's bilingual. Sure, put your name forward, see what happens. But the problem is you haven't demonstrated yourself to be a competent minister.
None of them have, and that's why we've said this before, that Trudeau has built himself a very weak cabinet so that none of them could threaten his leadership.
Yeah, no challengers.
I mean, right now, the guy with the best shot at taking Trudeau's spot isn't even an MP.
Well, and we saw this under Jean Chrétien, right? So when Jean Chrétien was in power for a long time, his whiz kid, Paul Martin, not really a kid, but he was a really good finance minister at the time. And he was too good of a finance minister, as it seems, because he basically, led a caucus revolt to push Jean Chrétien out because it was time for him to go. Now, the polls indicated it was time for Jean Chrétien to go. So that's what happened. So you end up having a situation like that. Trudeau coming in, first thing he's saying, oh, we can't have that. Well, so let's get out that leadership review. That needs to go. And then he decides, you know what? Best way to stay in power is to not have any of these, really strong people in cabinet, because who needs a cabinet anyway?
Canadians.
Well, apparently not Justin Trudeau. So this is what you end up having. Now, what ends up happening here is a bunch of bickering back and forth, and Stephanie Kuzy ends up putting forth a motion, gets amended, and what is this motion? The motion is essentially to bring Tom Clark back to committee, because the Conservatives have evidence that, at least from American media, that he actually did know. And they also have evidence from Joly's own staff that he was instrumental in this process. To go from he was instrumental in this process to, oh, that was a mistake, he wasn't involved at all. Like, come on. Again, stop peeing on my leg and telling me it's raining. Give me a break. So the NDP and the Bloc actually support this motion, but the problem is the Liberals filibustered for so long that they ran out of time. So we expect to see the continuation of this debate at the next Ogo meeting, and whenever the debate ends up wrapping up, because the three opposition parties support it, it's going to pass, which means Tom Clark's going to be brought back to committee, and oh boy, are fireworks going to happen then.